Strategies for decreasing undesirable behaviors. We've talked at length about how new responses can be learned, modified, and maintained through the use of reinforcement, but sometimes the goal may be to decrease and ideally eliminate a behavior. We have four possible methods of reducing and eliminating misbehavior. First is extinguishing responses. Extinction is making sure that a particular response no longer leads to reinforcement. We don't necessarily want to eliminate the particular reinforcers that have been operating in such circumstances. For example, the attention that Jimmy wants. We simply need to make sure that those reinforcers aren't contingent on inappropriate responses. Unfortunately, extinction isn't a completely dependable method of eliminating unwanted behaviors for several reasons. First, it isn't always possible to identify the specific consequence actually reinforcing a response. Second, several reinforcers might be maintaining a response, including some that are hard to remove. Third, even if all sources of reinforcement can be removed, the behavior may initially show an extinction burst, increasing in frequency before it begins to decline. Fourth, extinguished behavior sometimes shows spontaneous recovery. Finally, some responses may be particularly resistant to extinction because they've previously been reinforced on an intermittent schedule. Next is presenting non-contingent reinforcement. The primary disadvantage of this approach is that children don't necessarily learn more appropriate behaviors to replace the counterproductive ones. Occasionally, too, it might lead to superstitious behavior. Third is reinforcing other behaviors. A drawback with this approach is that learners can potentially earn reinforcement if they exhibit other inappropriate behaviors during the time period. A better strategy is to reinforce only desirable alternatives to an undesirable behavior. Punishment is especially advised when a behavior might harm either oneself or others. In such cases, using punishment to put a quick stop to this behavior may actually be the most humane course of action to take. Psychologists and educators have offered numerous suggestions for using punishment effectively. First is to choose a punishment that is truly punishing without being overly severe. Second, inform learners ahead of time about the behaviors that will be punished. Third, describe unacceptable behavior in clear, concrete terms. Fourth, whenever possible, administer punishment immediately after the inappropriate behavior. Fifth, administer punishment within the context of a generally warm, supportive environment. Sixth, explain why the behavior is unacceptable. Seventh, be consistent in imposing punishment for inappropriate behavior. Eighth, modify the environment so that misbehaviors are less likely to occur. Lastly, teach and reinforce more appropriate behaviors. In and of itself, punishment tells an individual what not to do, but not what should be done instead.